Great, so we're going to change gear a little bit and invite two excellent future leaders who are part of the early mid-career research special interest group. I'd like to call forward Dr. Vishabura, who's a family physician from the University of Pretoria, and Dr. Kennedy Kipkoech, who's a senior research associate from the University of Bristol, who will be providing some awards to new researchers.
Good morning, everyone. I thought the early and mid-career researchers also had a wonderful pre-conference day filled with fun and joy. And so we are standing here on behalf of the EMCR Special Interest Group to present this award. It's a great honor to welcome you to a very special moment at this year's Institute Conference. Today, we celebrate the incredible work of early and mid-career researchers who are shaping the future of health and hepatitis research among people who use drugs.
This is the very first Early and Mid-Career Research Leadership Award presented by the EMCR Special Interest Group. This award recognizes excellence and celebrates bold, inclusive, and collaborative leadership by researchers working in the health and human rights of people who use drugs. By honoring this work, we aim to support and celebrate the next generation of leaders. This award goes beyond recognition. It celebrates outstanding leadership while fostering continued professional growth through a 9-month tailored mentorship with a senior academic from the INSHU network. The recipient of this award also receives complimentary INSHU conference registration and a full travel scholarship.
This year, we received outstanding applications from across the globe. We want to acknowledge the exceptional contributions of all the nominees and the finalists. Thank you for your dedication and inspiring work. We extend a special recognition to Dr. Thomas Brothers, who is runner-up for this award. He's a physician, scientist, whose research advances system-level interventions to prevent harms experienced by people who inject drugs. We wish Dr. Tom continued success in his career.
But now, the winner of the inaugural INSU EMCR Award is, can we do a drum roll? Dr. Amanda Sloan-White from the University of British Columbia, Canada. So Dr. Amanda Sloan-White is currently an assistant professor. I took your lines.
So I'm going to give a brief bio about Dr. Amanda. She's currently an assistant professor at the University of British Columbia, Canada. She's also the director for the Canadian Collaboration for Prison Health and Education at UBC, and Scientific Director of Correctional Health Services at BC Mental Health and Substance Use Services. Her research focuses on overdose prevention and health system interventions to reduce health inequities for incarcerated people and people who use substances.
Through this work, they have led the first population-level evaluation of prescribed safer supply, published research that has informed public health and overdose response activities, health policy, and clinical care. And they have led Alaska's first state-level collaboration on neonatal opioid withdrawal, contributing to systems changes and that have reduced foster care placements. Their commitment to community, policy, practice, and innovation ensures that the research has real-world impact. For this outstanding contribution, INSHU is proud to present the Early EMCR Research Award to Dr. Amanda Sloan.
Congratulations. Thank you. Most folks, I think, who know me know that I don't like being the center of attention, and I really only applied for this award because my director of my department at the University of British Columbia said, you really need to be applying for awards. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do it, and so here we are today. But yes, thank you very much. I gratefully appreciate it, and I want to say it's a special honor for me working in prison health to be in South Africa, the home of Nelson Mandela. To receive this award is absolutely incredible, and I want to thank you so much for this. Thank you. We're going to just go back for a second. I do know Tommy. We're actually from the same province in which is Nova Scotia, Canada, which is very exciting. I guess Nova Scotia does breed lots of really great researchers who care about people who use drugs, which is pretty cool. So, the places you will go. I want to say thank you again for having me here today. My work right now, I went from one coast to the other. I'm currently living in Vancouver, British Columbia, which is the unceded, ancestral, and traditional homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I want to start by acknowledging that none of the research I'm presenting today or that I've completed in my lifetime is only done by me. It is done by an incredible group of researchers and people with lived experience and community members who have contributed to this work. And so none of it was done by me alone. And really, my research program is anchored in working with people with lived or living experience of substance use and incarceration, and I am forever grateful for their contributions. So I am a first-generation university professor from Nova Scotia, Canada. I learned very early in my life about substance use and mental health. I also learned very early in my life about poverty. Going through years of my childhood, only having beans and wieners. I don't know if that's a thing in South Africa, but it certainly is in Canada. And through my experiences, I learned that I wanted to do applied health research that really made a difference, that improved the lives of people who use substances, as well as made a difference to our healthcare system in Canada, so that our services were more responsive to the people who use substances and people who have mental health issues. So I'm very grateful to work alongside many people with lived or living experience who I will admit I often find that I have more in common with than my academic colleagues at UBC. I consider the work that I do with peers to be as important as publishing as your traditional academic outputs. They are incredible and incredibly important to the success of the research program and really keep our work grounded on the changes that we're seeing to the toxic drug supply, as well as the lived experience of using substances across British Columbia. So, of course, I think daily about the work of Nelson Mandela, because, of course, the Mandela rules really influence the work that we do in correctional health services. And I still believe that this quote is relevant today, which is that it is said that no one really knows a nation until you have been inside its jails. And I learned this firsthand when I was in Alaska. I was there for 2 years, and then unfortunately changes to immigration meant we had to return back to Canada. But in Alaska, I learned that there are many people who live in very deprived conditions in their jails and prisons throughout the state. And through that, it really motivated me to want to work in prisons for the rest of my life. And through my work now, I have a university appointment, but I also am at BC Correctional Health Services, where we provide health care to almost 10,000 incarcerated people every year. And so the research that we do directly informs our healthcare delivery. So I wanted to start by grounding kind of this presentation in a recent client experience with our service, because I believe that not only working with people with lived experience is important, but also telling the stories of our clients, even when they aren't flattering to our service. So this is a recent story of a client that we saw. So it was a 20-year-old Indigenous man who was incarcerated in British Columbia. He was unhoused prior to him coming to us. He had been previously diagnosed with FASD, ADHD, and he had cognitive impairment. And prior to coming to us, he had been using opioids and stimulants. He had been with us for a few months, for 6 weeks. And over that time, we had provided numerous healthcare services to him. So he received wound care, antibiotics. He had been given Suboxone or buprenorphine naloxone. He declined mental health appointments, and then when he was released, we referred him to treatment, and we referred him to transitional supports. Unfortunately, he died from overdose 10 days after being released from our service. And really, this story is not unique. Unfortunately, every month we have several folks that are experiencing this, and it's something I wanted to draw attention to today because it's very concerning to us to see these trends. So we know that the health of incarcerated people in British Columbia is directly linked to the overdose crisis in the province. Over a quarter of people who had an overdose from 2015 through 2020 had been previously incarcerated and had been seen by correctional health services. We know that people who've been incarcerated are 3.5 times more likely to die from an overdose event. And so the health of incarcerated people is very important to responding to the overdose crisis in Canada and in British Columbia. We've also looked at the inequities that exist between incarcerated and non-incarcerated people in British Columbia. And this is some new data that I'm reporting where we compared the prevalence of different conditions among incarcerated and non-incarcerated folks. And really what you can see here is that incarcerated people experience a disproportionate rates of opioid use disorder, alcohol use disorder, substance use disorder, mental illness. And in fact, our correctional centers are becoming de facto mental health and substance use treatment centers in the province. So in addition to that, we also are seeing this rise in poverty and housing insecurity among incarcerated people in BC. I'm sure if anybody's heard about Vancouver, it was the 2010 Olympics. It's also the highest housing cost in Canada. It is extremely expensive to live in Vancouver and to live in BC. And so by using linked admin data, we've been able to look at the intersection between poverty and being unhoused among people who've been incarcerated. And what you can see from this figure is that we have a high proportion of people who have mental health and substance use disorder, but that many of those folks who have mental health and substance use, they're very likely to also experience poverty and unhoused. So similar to the story that I talked about earlier, this is a very familiar phenomenon where people are experiencing not only these significant health challenges, but they also are low income and they're unhoused. So really, what are we doing to set them up for success when they are released from custody? And so all of this is leading to some emerging work in British Columbia to respond to this issue, which has been labeled the new clinical triad that we're starting to see in correctional health services, which means that we're seeing an increasing proportion of our clients who are presenting to corrections with psychosis, with brain injury often caused by overdose, and then also having high rates of substance use. At the same time, many folks are experiencing extreme poverty, prolonged periods of housing insecurity. And then we're also seeing increased stigma and decreased community support for these populations. So it really is a challenging situation for us. So just to wrap this up, and I know it's kind of a downer, especially compared to the previous videos that were so exciting to watch, but I think all of this is important to highlight that the health of incarcerated people throughout the globe is really important to our overall population health, and that if we are to achieve better population health, we really need to focus on the health of incarcerated people in Canada and globally to address this asymmetrical burden of disease, substance use, mental health, substance use-related harms. And then, of course, empowering people with lived or living experience to be part of our academic community is absolutely essential to ensure that our work is equity anchored. And as always, I need to say that none of this is representative of my organizations that I represent or the data stewards. And I just want to say thank you again for having me, and thank you.
Thank you once again, Dr. Amanda, and congratulations. I think this award not only honors your great achievements, but also reflects INSU's commitment in supporting early and mid-career researchers. And so, congratulations. So join us once more to congratulate Dr. Amanda.